all over the United States, some very unfortunate elevated highways were built, particularly in the 50s and 60s. Ugly, disruptive, usually socially nasty, generally through low-income neighborhoods, often minority neighborhoods.
Exactly what we have.
In Boston, certainly pushed by business and suburban interests, with the city putting up a fight but losing. And these really disruptive facilities then compound the problem by attracting more traffic, undermining the transit system that was carrying a share of it. So when it comes time to fix it, when it's starting to fall down, it's a devilishly difficult problem to deal with. And in 1956, when the federal government began to get heavily involved in putting a lot of money into the highway solutions, even more of these elevated roads got built. Now, my view is the federal government caused a lot of this problem. They've got a responsibility to help fix these problems, not just walk away and leave the cities with it. There was also a lag in federal law. So you had these very highway-oriented laws, particularly the 1956 Interstate Highway Law, that really poured money into a lot of these elevated facilities all over the country. People began to push back, and in 1966, laws were passed to protect parkland, because for a while, they were just building the roads through every park. It was sort of cheaper because the government already owned the parkland. Of course, they were destroying the beauty of the city. But 1966 landmark legislation to protect parks, and then the big one was 1970, when the National Environmental Policy Act passed. It said not just parkland, but the environment and socioeconomic characteristics have got to be considered, and you have to look at alternatives, and if you cause harm, you have to mitigate that harm. That was a huge reform. The highway agencies generally tried to ignore the law, so often it was citizens' suits that led that to become the practice. In Massachusetts, we were lucky. We had a very progressive Republican Governor Sargent, then we had a very progressive Democrat Governor Dukakis, who really got it. And when we did the planning for the Big Dig, we embraced the National Environmental Policy Act. We said it's the law of the land.
It was already the law, but other people weren't embracing it.
It had been the law since 1970. We said, we're going to do this one right. And we had a major participatory process with a lot of different stakeholders, from low-income communities to businesses. We were partly lucky. We found a win-win solution that pretty much everybody could buy into. And we were very fortunate in our federal officials. We were able to case that we were entitled to the same 90% federal funding as every other part of the country had gotten, which was straightforward in the law, but required some political support to get Washington to agree. And so we were able to basically deal with it, but it was a long struggle. We started working on this. I started working on this idea around 1971 and had barely gotten through the federal environmental process and the funding issues by 1990, almost 20 years later, when I left the government, and the people after me then constructed it.